Hello, and welcome back to a very special episode of the Krysta Podcast. Today, we wanted to look back at the entire life, almost 10 years, of Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, with the final booster course pass set of tracks coming out, this whole big project.
It's finally
which
over.
somehow made it 10 years, has wrapped up, so it feels like a great point to just look back at all of the, how did we get to this point, and maybe look a little bit ahead to the future.
Yeah, and to start out, we were at Nintendo collectively for over 30 years. So we've been through the majority of this 10-year cycle life of this game, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, we started, what was your first year, 2007?
Yes.
And we left in 2022. So we saw basically, all but the very end of this project.
Yeah.
And I was actually the public relations lead on the original Wii U version of Mario Kart 8. And we were sort of racking our memory. And I think we found out that you were the lead for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch.
Yeah, we're going to get to why we found that to be hilarious, because I do remember now that I worked on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch, but it was actually a funny story, so we'll save that for later on in this episode.
Yeah, so we know our stuff, if you're wondering who are these people talking about
this.
this.
That's true, we've been through it.
Yeah, so I think we need to start with Mario Kart 7 before we can talk about Mario Kart 8, actually.
Yeah, and I was actually the co-lead on Mario Kart 7.
There you go, yeah. So, this game came out in December of 2011.
Yeah.
I remember, obviously, the launch of the 3DS was extremely rocky, extremely turbulent, a very concerning time within the company, because we were going from the great stability and success of the Wii and the DS to now the 3DS, and then in the near future, the Wii U.
Right.
And everybody inside the company was like, just hold the fort until the end of the year.
Hold the line.
We have a Mario Kart game coming.
That's right. And I remember, like you said, it was extremely rocky, and frankly, the launch of the 3DS was very lackluster. And there was no hitting of sales goals. There was no celebration of a successful launch. And also, we talked about this before in some of our other videos, there just wasn't a strong launch lineup for the 3DS.
Steel Diver?
Anyone? We're all spoiled, right, by the Wii, the Switch days where we have crazy launch lineups. And I think because of how rocky the 3DS was, lessons were learned for the Switch launch. But this game was basically what all hopes and dreams were pinned on. And it wasn't coming until the end of the year. It was a December release.
It's unusual for a game of that size to come out in December, and sort of indicates we are doing everything we can to squeak this out while there's still time in the holiday season to push sales of the game and also sales of the 3DS. Remember, we had to cut the price of the 3DS with the ambassador program. My ambassador certificate proudly framed and hanging in my home.
Yeah, the crazy news stories about Mr. Iwata cutting his own salary was all in this time period.
Right. So it was a very concerning time. And again, everybody was just just hold it down until we can get this game out. So that's an interesting place for it to be, and kind of, really started to cement, if it wasn't already cemented by that point. I mean, on the Wii and DS, it sold, tens of millions of this is one of the most critical franchises that we have. And I think before it was oh yeah, we got Mario, we got Zelda, Smash Brothers is up and coming. Oh yeah, Mario Kart's good, but I don't think it was entirely in that echelon at that point.
I think so too, and I think the desperation for actual software games for 3DS kind of forced it to be that, especially inside Nintendo, because we didn't really have other things like Smash or Zelda or Mario, the traditional, Mario games to fall back on. This was our only hope. And so I think from a marketing perspective, a lot was done to launch this game. I mean, I have ridiculous stories about the stuff that we did for this game launch, including building karts in real life.
When are we going to hear that?
Customs. Please tune into a future episode of the Krysta Podcast. But this was one of the craziest launches because I think people just inside the company just really started to see the importance of and the power of Mario Kart and really like saw this as a way to drive hardware sales. And I feel like that perception of Mario Kart has carried over into Mario Kart 8.
Yes. So kind of from a game context, I think if I was to just do off the top of my head like a tier list of Mario Kart games, I'd probably put 7 near the middle.
Yeah.
There are some parts of it that are good. There's some parts that are frankly just unremarkable.
Yeah.
But it did introduce some gameplay aspects that carried over and played a big role in 8, namely being able to customize your kart, getting all these different pieces and putting together a kart that sort of reflected you, and also this aspect of gliding through courses, going underwater, kind of breaking out of the normal course idea.
Right. Yeah, introducing the glider and just like opening up the creativity in terms of the different types of terrain and tracks, I think started in Mario Kart 7. And obviously you see that even in the beginning of Mario Kart 8. And then of course, now that we're at the very end of Mario Kart 8, with how many courses are we at? Like 90-something courses or whatever. Like you see that creativity has only gotten more wild and crazy and great. But that idea of what we think is a Mario Kart course, what you can do in a Mario Kart course, that seedling didn't get started, I think, until Mario Kart 7.
Yeah, I agree. And, in the end, the game sold fine. The 3DS did eventually, stumble its way to becoming a decent success for Nintendo, and that was one of the early building blocks, but nowhere near the explosive sales of what had come before or what would come after.
Right, exactly.
So Mario Kart 8 then, that was first announced at E3 2013, and as would happen, our team would go up to Redmond and see these games like right before E3 because we were going to be talking about them and doing interviews on them and needed to be knowledgeable about them. I remember that the first time seeing this game very vividly.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this was also like sort of the sad Wii U days, as we like to call it, where we knew that the hardware wasn't doing well. We were kind of down in the dumps as just a company in general, like a bit, low in terms of the mood because of very lackluster sales and launch, and we knew we were in a downtime. So again, when you have these pops of something great, you really like hold on to it because you've been in this period of just like down for so long. That's what I remember most about it. Was I think Mario Kart was sort of that start of, we still have some great games. There are some great games for Wii U. The console isn't doing that great, but these games are like awesome, And that was kind of like my first little glimmer of hope and realization that like it's okay. Like we're gonna be okay. Like we still have these great games to like hold us through. And I think when we're seeing this game for the first time, like I was really struck by just how bright and colorful, vibrant it was, and it just gave me like a glimmer of hope. I think in that kind of dark time. So that's what I remember most. What about you?
Yeah, so in my illustrious career in video games,
illustrious.
There are 3 games that gave me the OMG feeling I am seeing something incredible and this is going to be like a big deal. Yeah. One of them might surprise you.
One of them is definitely Breath of the Wild.
One of them was Breath of the Wild, which we saw a few years later.
Yeah.
This was another one of them because I was like, first of all, this game looks incredible.
That's the thing.
Even today, this game looks incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't call it the graphics were realistic, but there was a sense of realism in a Mario Kart universe.
Yeah, exactly.
And like graphical fidelity and effects and speed that we didn't see in previous games. And there was just something about the visuals of it. I was like, this is a next-gen Mario Kart game.
Right, it felt very next-gen.
A lot of the previous ones, like especially Mario Kart Wii, got a lot of criticism of like, this is lazy, this is like the series might be kind of falling off.
Right.
But that was like, no, this is like a fresh, new take. And it felt so good to drive. There were so many characters. The courses were really creative and fun. I came away from that. I was like, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
First time seeing that game.
Yeah.
The other game, for those curious, when I worked at Bandai Namco, Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm.
Oh, wow.
Which at the time was the closest thing
Wii?
to no, this is a PS3 game.
PS3, okay.
The closest thing to watching like an actual Naruto episode.
Okay, that's cool.
Absolutely visually incredible game.
Okay.
That's nothing to do with Mario Kart though.
Yeah, but definitely.
Shout out to Naruto though.
It is very rare to get the goosebump feeling with a game, and when you touch the controls for the first time of a game, it really, that first impression means so much, and I think this game really just like nailed that first impression, because everything that we did during that first time seeing the game really just like blew our minds.
Yeah,
I totally agree. It's hard to put your finger on what made it feel next gen and what about the graphics was so special. And even when I play Mario Kart today, 10 years later from this moment, I still...
This game holds up incredibly well.
Exactly. Yeah. I still, like, I just played the booster courses not 2 days ago.
Right.
2023. And I was like, man, this game looks and just
10
feels
years.
great.
Yeah.
You know, it feels great. It feels like it's ageless, you know? And that's something very incredible that was built in right at the start of when this game launched.
So as far as the development leads, we had Mr. Kono, who was kind of one of the original, creators of Mario Kart overall, and he eventually went on to oversee all of Nintendo's work in mobile games, which is notable where we got Mario Kart Tour.
Right.
And then we also had Mr. Yabuki, who was new to us. He'd obviously been at Nintendo for some time, but was new to us in this kind of a role. So I think it was interesting to have this kind of, and you see this a lot in Nintendo projects now, kind of like the old guard meeting like the young upstart developer who's got all these fresh ideas.
But giving them the guidance from their deep knowledge of working on these franchises for long periods of time. Mr. Kono, like side note, is like the nicest person ever. Like, he is so sweet and so nice. And then Mr. Yabuki obviously was working on the series, and he also goes on to work on ARMS as well. And you guys might know his crazy ARMS moves at another E3, but he's been on the Mario Kart.
Yeah, so when you wonder, how come there's not an ARMS sequel? It's like, well, the guy in charge of it's got better things to do.
I was just gonna say, like, that's exactly why. Like, he did a little project with ARMS, and then now he's probably working on Mario Kart 9.
The game sold 3 million or sold 50 million. I wonder what I'm gonna put my time into.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's probably a tap on the shoulder there that maybe focus on this thing.
Right. So the game made a pretty good impact at that E3, and everybody came away pretty happy. Obviously, the specter of the Wii U just kind of hung over us, but we kind of went right into our launch planning, and the big talking point for us was the whole anti-gravity aspect of it. That was like one of the key messages that we had. I'm sure if you went to look at the back of the box of the Wii U game,
there's going to be an upside down something
right there. Very in your face about that, which I always thought was interesting. When I play the game, I don't really get that much of a sensation of anti-gravity.
Right.
Like, you can tell, this is very dynamic, there's a lot of movement, but I wouldn't say it plays really much of a role at all in actually playing the game.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking to the developers about the anti-gravity, I was really trying to understand it more, because I had the same impression you did. Like, when I physically, got my hands on a controller and played and was experiencing that, like, couldn't really tell, but they were really, like, pushing us to talk about it, and especially about, like, this thing, like, where, usually in Mario Kart games, you want to avoid hitting things, because that slows you down.
Yeah.
But, like, in the anti-gravity mode, you want to hit things.
Right.
So they were really trying to, like, do some sort of, like, mind trick, where it's like, this is the big difference, is that you can, like, run into objects in other carts and have this sort of, like, speed boost. But I think that this kind of, I don't want to call it like a gimmick, because that could be kind of...
That's absolutely a gimmick.
It's a negative connotation, but they definitely called it a gimmick. I hate calling
Japanese developers love the word gimmick.
I don't like the word gimmick.
We need to have an intervention on the meaning of this word.
Yeah, they don't know I don't think
they think it's cool.
They think it's cutesy and cool.
I think it means something that's cheap.
I think it's like throwaway.
To distract you from something that sucks.
Right. That's exactly what the connotation is in English. Yeah. But anyways, they called it a gimmick, but I kind of feel like this was very gimmicky.
It was.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that we had kind of, built this whole campaign around
anti-grav.
this game feature that maybe or maybe was not all that compelling.
Right.
But I do remember this was around the time of, hey, the Wii U's not doing great. We do need to start to cook up some new ideas for marketing. So there were a lot of new things that we did around this that, for Nintendo at the time did feel pretty innovative.
Yeah, yeah. This was the famous, where social media started to get a lot bigger as well. And I think this is when Nintendo started, their first sort of foray into, meme culture.
Well, we had the Luigi
like
death
that.
stare was red meat for that right out of the gate. And that was one of those interesting early conversations of should we get involved in this? Is it something that is it going to become lame once Nintendo steps in, as so often happens? Once the brands enter the conversation,
no longer cool.
It becomes lame.
Right.
And I think we did do something quite late, as was our case, because we had to talk to a lot of people about it and make sure everybody was okay. But that was a legitimate phenomenon.
It really was.
Out of the gate for that game, which was a nice little boost for us to get just some broader conversation around it.
Yeah, and I think usually these kinds of trends come and go so quickly. This one lasted a really long time.
You'll still occasionally see this pop up.
You'll see it
right.
sometimes, and it's still not lame.
Right.
And you know what's really special about this one too is that it's so interesting that usually in any kind of Mario game at the time, especially in 2014. We weren't really focusing on different characters and their personalities very much. That was something that they, Nintendo would kind of shy away from. Focus on gameplay, focus on, the actual, that kind of stuff, but don't focus on the characters, don't focus on their personalities. But this one was straight up, Luigi personality highlight.
Right.
And it was so rare, but I think it kind of started the wheels turning oh yeah, these characters can have these backstories and personalities that we could highlight.
Right. You and I obviously went very heavy on it on Nintendo Minute, which I'll pat myself on the back. I'll say that was a very forward-thinking show. But I do remember I also worked on videos that were, for the first time, really focused on the kid audience on YouTube, where it's let's get a kid host and come up with these little gags and skits that are very kid-focused. And we spent a lot on those. We spent a lot of time on those, and that's since then has always been a big emphasis for Nintendo of bring in new kid fans, new kid players.
Yeah.
And that to me was the first time that we were really consciously trying to do it versus just assuming oh yeah, kids love Nintendo.
Yeah.
Don't have to do anything there.
Or Nintendo used to have this way of looking at who plays their games. They're especially with the Wii U or the Wii era, it's everybody plays our games, not 0 to 99 or whatever. It's no, a 0-year-old and a 99-year-old.
I'm 100 years old and I can't play?
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Not? I'm
time to kick off this mortal coil.
I'm in the womb, but I can't play Mario Kart.
Not for zygotes. Sorry.
Not for zygotes. Yeah. So it was very unique to have something focused on the characters, something that was acknowledging a social media trend, something that was targeted towards a very specific audience. Those are things that Nintendo has never done until the launch of this game.
So the other thing that was very unique about this game was, we started to hear around the time of the launch, there's going to be a lot of post-release content, which at the time was not new for video games in general, but was very new for us.
Yeah.
The first Nintendo game that had DLC, I think, was New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS, which didn't predate this by that much. But we got a lot, even on the Wii U version. And the first one of those was infamously
terrible.
This Mercedes-Benz free update, which I remember quite clearly working on this, and I was what are we doing here?
Yeah, that was a real shocker.
This was shaky.
Yeah, and it definitely was so not like Nintendo to do something like this. Nintendo hates things where it's quote, borrowed interest.
Right.
Where it's not something that, is natively in the game that you can talk about from a marketing perspective. You're borrowing this, I guess, the interest of old people, old rich people that have Mercedes-Benzes somehow, which was just bizarre. It didn't match up with the game at all, and it was just such a strange partnership.
Yeah, I think this was just Nintendo operating from a position of weakness.
Exactly.
And what can we do? Let's even bend our rules a little bit to just drum up something. So I would, never expect them to make a deal like this.
Ever again.
And honestly, I was surprised when this was included in the Switch version as well. I figured they would have been like, well, we're getting rid of this.
Sweep that one under the rug.
But no, and I remember they made this ridiculous ad in Japan with like the buff Mario guy with the scary like big nose and all of this. So I was very concerned about this. The reaction was not as bad as I think people just approached it as like an oddity of like, oh, that's weird and maybe funny and silly.
Yeah.
Versus Nintendo's sold out.
No one talked about it as much as like for very long.
Yeah.
Like it kind of came and went.
Right.
Like it sort of, then people just ignored it, I feel.
Right. So after that, we did get kind of these two really big, substantial DLC packs. There was the Zelda pack, which came out November 2014, and then the Animal Crossing pack, which came out in April 2015. And this was notable for a lot of reasons. It introduced a lot of really great new tracks, but also, we got out of just the Mario character set, and we were like breaking down the walls. It's like, well, now we got Link in this. We've got all these Animal Crossing characters in it, and I think when you start to think of like the future of the series, like this is sort of where those ideas maybe are put into motion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think again, this is another example where if Wii U was in a better state and Nintendo was in a better state in general, they would not consider these kinds of crossovers.
Okay.
Because they're very precious about, the sort of the DNA and the core values of their IP. Like even the Mario Kart team, I think, were kind of in a little box of like what Mario Kart is called Mario Kart for a reason. It's not called Nintendo Kart. So I really do think like that these kinds of like loosening of these guardrails came about because of where this game sits within the the history of the company, and because it was launched on this hardware that was like very bad. So yeah, I think these are some good things that came out of a shaky time. Not the Mercedes-Benz one, but like definitely opening it up to characters outside of the Mushroom Kingdom universe, and like adding these, using your, being more imaginative with like what kinds of things you can include in Mario Kart. Like I think that's a good thing for the series in the future.
I never really thought about it like that, and I think maybe the reason was that it was just so well done that it felt like a logical extension of the series versus like this panic move of, oh my God, we have to stop the bleeding immediately.
Yeah, I don't think it's like panic, but it's like we need to do something. And like it was very accepting as a whole during that time in the company. We kind of lived through that, where like this was the time where Mr. Iwata was out there like doing crazy stuff.
Yeah,
and this was the time where the company felt very open to new ideas because of its position. Like in the Switch days, no.
Yeah.
There is no room for new ideas because it's working, so let's just do the bare minimum. You know what I mean? So I think it may not be like I'm panicking, like let's poop out these packs, but more so we're open to these new ideas.
Yeah, I was just so surprised at how fully fleshed out these were. I mean, sometimes with DLC you like question the value of it. Like, am I really getting a lot? Like, you got a lot.
You really did.
In this.
Yeah.
And it was great to play, and it felt like this major new expansion. I mean, you got like, it's like the courses, they put so much effort into the music. Like, remember those F-Zero tracks with the orchestrated versions of like the F-Zero music?
And the little details like in the on the Zelda packs, like all the coins turned into rupees. Like the Animal Crossing, the different seasons. Like they so much love
picking up
went
bells.
into that. Yeah,
it was just so well done. We just mentioned it now, so I gotta say, like the soundtrack on this game is like god tier soundtrack.
It is the best. play that on repeat at a big band orchestra.
I have listened to this soundtrack
outside of
just
the game.
outside of the game
Me too.
for like a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah.
We did a video of us a whistling competition, which is the dumbest thing one of the dumbest things we've ever done.
First of all, you can't carry a tune.
I was great at that, by the way.
No, you weren't. You're off key.
But like, gosh, there's just so many parts of this game that the quality was just through the roof on this game. Some other things that we got as free updates along the way was the 200cc mode.
Yes.
Which I'm frightened to play as.
I never go higher than 150.
At a lot of times.
Yeah, that's tough.
And then also, once Amiibo came out with Smash, we got all of the Amiibo Mii racing suits.
Those are cool.
Which further expanded kind of the IP situation in Mario Kart.
Yeah, we all got very excited to have our little Miis.
Right,
In the game,
little baby Kirby, or holding on to get your like Mega Man suit, or I like the Pac-Man one.
The Pac-Man one's good.
Yeah, they were all just great.
So cute.
The one other thing I would say about this game that was noteworthy, like right out of the gate, was Nintendo's got this very shaky reputation with online play. The online in this game was just good from day one.
Yeah, it just worked.
It's not got
very basic.
Every bell and whistle you could come up with in an online game, but it's extremely functional. It was super smooth. I don't know why I'm not a technical guy in this way. I don't know why whatever they used for this game can't be applied to other games
Smash or something
that just
that
don't work.
Yeah.
But what an incredible thing to have for this game.
Right. I mean, this game hinges on multiplayer.
Yeah.
Playing with other people.
I mean, this game is still fun to go play online, and there's a ton of people on it.
Yeah, we play it all the time.
You get into races like right away,
Mm-hmm.
and it's totally seamless.
Yeah. Incredible stuff in 2014, for sure.
Just incredible stuff for Nintendo, period. How did this happen?
Weirdly can't replicate it in other games.
I know.
I don't know why,
My
but
gosh.
whatever.
So, this game goes on to sell, in Wii U terms, quite well.
Right.
But again,
A little shaky.
A few generations before on the Wii and the DS, we were in like 30 million territory. So it definitely felt there was a damper on that because it was like,
we just couldn't. We had a limitation with the hardware.
We are not living up to the potential of this series because we have this hardware that's holding us back.
Right. So we ditched that.
Right. So, we all started to turn our prospects ahead to the Nintendo Switch. And hey, right there, when the Switch was first revealed in that trailer, there was that guy in the back seat.
Oh, that's right.
Doing his little Joy-Con Mario Kart play.
That's right.
Right. And, that was so interesting because at that time, Nintendo didn't confirm any of those games.
Right.
Like we're not announcing a Mario Kart. We're just showing what it could look like.
What it could look like.
Hey, it's a possibility. This is just a video. We're not announcing anything.
Right.
But obviously that did go on to become a game, and obviously that did go on to become just a major, trend on the Switch of let's re-release these games. Let's bring them to a bigger new audience on the Switch.
Obviously, your install base is huge now.
Right,
on Switch,
right.
And then later on, we got tons of stuff like Donkey Kong and all sorts of other Wii U games that didn't really meet up to its full potential.
Right. So the launch of the Switch was in March 2017. This game came out very, very shortly after.
Right.
In April 2017.
Obviously, the launch title for Switch was Breath of the Wild, but that was a historic...
1-2 Switch, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I forgot all about the cow milking. My bad.
Jeez.
Obviously, 2017 goes down in history as one of the most incredible years of video game launches, especially for Nintendo, obviously, with like the most stacked launch year in terms of games. Again, learned a hard lesson during those sad 3DS days of never to do that again. Have your games ready to go when you have a new console, or else people are going to fall off pretty quick. So they were very, very aware of that, and these things were just coming out like one after the other.
And, as you sort of hinted at early on, like the funny thing is, like we were so focused on all the day one launches of the hardware and those handful of games that we had on day one. This really did honestly feel like an afterthought for us.
It totally fell to the wayside. I was racking my brain trying to remember what we did for the launch.
Who
of
worked on
Mario
this?
Kart
What did we
8
do?
Deluxe. And then I realized it was me. And the reason why I don't remember, because I was the hardware lead for Switch.
Right.
So I was launching the hardware.
Right.
And I was like, we must have done something for Mario Kart 8. This game sold like, like however millions of copies. It's always number one on the charts, even now. I'm like, what did we do? And I realized that we didn't even do any separate launch campaign for this game.
Yeah.
We just let it come out as like a proof point for why you should get a Switch. And it was like, it always just was shown in like a long list of
like
games.
A sizzle reel or something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, you can also play Mario Kart 8.
Right.
If you didn't play it on Switch or on Wii U or whatever. And it's fascinating to me that was our like approach to it, because this game, without doing anything at all, and still do nothing at all really, has just sat at the #1 spot in terms of sales for like the entire life cycle.
I think it's fair on one hand because nobody knew that just a relaunch could be that big.
Yeah.
Like, I think people are like, oh, it's Mario Kart. People will like it. People will buy it. But nobody was thinking like, oh, this is going to be, through the whole generation. This is going to be our top seller. This is going to smash records. It's going to be perpetually #1. We're going to do a Black Friday bundle every year for the rest of our lives with this game.
Yes.
Nobody was thinking that way. And I can sort of understand it, but it is funny like how low-key the launch was.
Right. It was so just like an afterthought. And I think because of that, frankly, Nintendo, we were surprised at like how well it sold.
Yeah.
Like we would laugh every single time. We're like, oh, it beat like the game that we put like all this effort into again without doing anything. Why do we bother? But I think that's what sort of spurred the team on to then do all of these things for it, like the DLC, like the booster packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was very much like a reaction versus it being like a planned out thing.
There was probably way more marketing done for it post-release.
Yeah. Like
because anytime it was like, oh, it's the new holidays, like what games are we going to put front and center? Or there was some other, just kind of generic gift buying opportunity. Like this was always like top of the list.
Yeah, and like you said, it became a Black Friday bundle for like 5 years.
That's going nowhere.
As long as there's a Switch bundle, you're going to get a Mario Kart.
I know, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, in terms of what was in this, so it had all of the DLC kind of bundled into it, which was great. Mm-hmm. It did have this expanded battle mode, which was one of the big criticisms for the vanilla Wii U version, was that it didn't have like, a proper battle mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were just doing it on the tracks that you were racing on, which it wasn't very fun.
It wasn't very fun,
honestly. And we brought Splatoon into the fold.
That's right.
As well. So not a ton of new content, but what was in there was notable and substantial. Mm-hmm. So it did help it to feel more than just like
literally a port,
a lazier sort of port and re-release of that. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stuff there, but it pretty quickly became this perpetual seller, which, again, certainly not based on anything that we did. It was just based on, the strength and the interest in Mario Kart and that cachet that had been built up over time. Again, 30 million people on the DS and on the Wii, bought that game. So there was just this pent up demand for, how long would that have been? Like, 10 years or so.
Right, exactly.
Of people wanting to get back into it. So that was fascinating.
And it's just one of those games where like you can underestimate it as just like some racing game or whatever, but it's one of those games where it's like a must-have in everybody's new system library. Like you just have to buy it. It doesn't matter. Like even if you're like some casual person that doesn't play a lot of games, like this is the one.
Yeah, I actually think, for myself, through the life of the Switch, that my total hour count that's the highest of any game, and it might be this, like more than any of the Zeldas, more than anything else. I think just cumulatively, I have just come back to it again and again.
Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people it's like that.
I think everybody's like that. And like you always break it out when someone comes over You know, you're perpetually going to have fun playing this game. Like,
an underrated feature that can be annoying if you are playing with good people is that the feature, the auto drive and the auto steering, is kind of amazing because people will say like, oh, you know, this game is fine for people who don't play games, but a lot of times it's not. Like, you do need to have some basic ability or knowledge of how video games work.
Yeah.
But in this, like, you can truly give it to somebody who has never played a video game in their life and turn those things on, and like, they can have a good time with it.
It's fun, yeah.
Which I'm a little surprised that more games have not learned from that of like super baby mode.
This is like super
literally
baby mode.
For babies.
Yeah.
Like wave the controller.
Yeah, like a 2-year-old.
Like, hey, you're racing.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
And they feel involved. You know,
I
like,
mean,
literally
you are still playing it. It's not like a cheat. But sometimes it is on by default. That's the annoying part.
Don't do that.
So sometimes I'll be doing a race. I'm like, this doesn't feel right, and I'll see that little like antenna in the back. I'm like, oh, gotta restart.
Yeah, restart.
Darn it.
That's right.
Right, but that is kind of an underrated, like, I don't know if you'd call it an accessibility feature, but you know, in the true Nintendo spirit of everybody can play this game. Actually, everybody can play this game.
Right, and we really had like the most office tournaments around this game. And it was like the most competitive thing ever. Like, I couldn't believe talk about death stares, you know? People were giving death stares to each other down the hall. But we were like deadlocked in these Mario Kart inter-office tournaments. And it just speaks to like the power and the broadness of this game. Like, everybody wanted to play this game. Everybody wanted to play this game all the time with people around them, you know? And it was so fun.
Yeah. So, you know, the game would get these sort of regular updates, but we weren't really adding new content to it until, you know, very late in, I think it was probably, so the Booster Course Pass was announced in February 2022. So I think it was 2021 when we first started to hear about that.
Right.
And the first time I heard about this, like, I thought my leg was being pulled.
You're like, you gotta be kidding me.
I was like, first of all, we're doing new content for this game like 5 years later, and you're doubling the number of tracks.
Right.
This does not sound believable.
Yeah.
Somebody is trolling me right now.
Yeah, I know. It was shocking because it was just so late in like the life of the game. We're like, why? And also, like, it was already selling so well.
Right.
So like, why? You don't need to do any of this. But that's fine if you want to. I guess.
I mean, it was a very unconventional move because, you probably could have argued, like, we don't actually need to do anything.
Right.
But, you know, I think as far as continuing to keep the trajectory of this high, you know, continuing, you know, I have to imagine that this game has a big impact on NSO subscriptions, you know, keeping people plugged into that. I think there's a lot of, like, bigger picture kind of businessy things at play with this. And I mean, this has just been a wonderful addition. Again, it just wrapped up, but they doubled the number of tracks.
They kept you going back 5 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it was truly an event every time one of these packs dropped. Like, they didn't, like, sustain for, like, a month, but for, like, a week or so, like, everybody was going back and people were talking about it. And we were making videos about it. And it did feel like this special sort of thing. I would argue that overall, the quality of these tracks were not quite as good as what was in the original game. But they got pretty close. Yeah,
they were pretty close. I mean, some of them are a little bit more generic than others. I also think they wanted to find a way to bring in some of those Mario Kart Tour courses. And we should talk about Mario Kart Tour a little bit because that was definitely different. And as you mentioned, Mr. Kono went on to lead the mobile team.
Right.
And, you know, the mobile stuff for Nintendo has been very sort of up and down, mainly down. So, you know, there is sort of this idea of like what kind of really powerful Nintendo IPs can be brought over to mobile to make it feel not so down.
I don't know why Mario Kart Tour is not like the biggest mobile game ever.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be, right?
Somehow it doesn't really feel right.
Somehow it hasn't happened. Like it's fine to play. I've played it, you know, a fair amount. It's fine. You know, it does have all the kind of, you know, money grab things that a mobile game is going to have. But yeah, for some reason it never really clicked on in a
Yeah.
big way, the way that you might have expected given the pedigree of the series. And frankly, like the amount of effort that Nintendo put into making the game. Like that was not a slap together sort of game.
Yeah, none of the mobile games really are.
Right.
They're really quite high
Right,
quality, but
and-
somehow it doesn't click.
I mean, they are still operating at a lot of the mobile games at this point. They've shut down. But yeah, they did want to find a way to bring over some of those courses that they had. So, the idea of Tour is a lot of those courses are set in real world
Right.
locations. So,
Yeah.
every booster course pass release had
like 2 of
a
those.
couple of
Yeah.
those included. And as somebody who dabbled in Tour, I had kind of mixed feelings about it. I don't always love the juxtaposition of Mario in the real world. B, those courses were very focused on the route changing every lap.
Yeah.
So unless you had played it, 5 to 10 times
You don't know where to
actually
go.
memorized it, there was a lot of like, oh, I did great on lap 1, but I did terrible on lap 2 because I had
Yeah.
this other turn that I
No
wasn't ready
idea.
for,
Yeah.
and I don't even know where
And
to
also,
go.
it really hinges on like if that city is actually very landmark heavy,
Right,
or else
right.
it's very hard to recognize. You're just
Yeah, sometimes it's just like, oh, so I'm in a city.
like Los Angeles is one where I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
What? Like I don't know these landmarks that well to
Yeah.
understand like the appeal of this.
Right.
So that was a little bit interesting. I mean, Mario Kart Tour, again, I think they're just trying to like bridge over a little bit because they did not get the big like crazy mobile success with Mario Kart Tour, and there was obviously effort put into those tracks. It might as well bring it to a install base on Switch that is huge that would be able to experience this,
Yeah.
because like I really didn't play many of those courses.
Right.
They were new to me,
Right, right.
So that was something.
But they did continue this good trend of releasing the older courses, but in a lot of ways really like remixing them. So
Right.
in the last pack, like they did have this Bowser's Castle track that was from the Super Nintendo, the very first Mario Kart, which is just completely different.
It looks so good.
And they added like all this verticality to it, which
Mm-hmm.
was obviously not in the original version. So, and I think that's just a great ongoing thing that they have going for them, is like now we banked this just great library of tracks
Right.
through history
Yeah.
that people have nostalgia for, that we can keep tweaking, depending on the kind of game that we're making. So that's just super valuable.
And it's always like a big conversation topic for people too. It's like, oh my gosh, the Wii Rainbow Road is finally here.
It's very debatable.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, which is your favorite Rainbow Road? And everybody will have a
Have
different
a different answer,
Yeah.
but it's cool to have them all in one game.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So I think that's very smart of them to kind of, do these re-releases of these courses because, people still want to play them and want to talk about them.
Yeah. So before we wrap up our conversation of Mario Kart 8, I gotta ask, what's your favorite Mario Kart 8 track? Because I have an easy pick.
You're gonna say Mount Wario.
That's right. And you can say Mount Wario too. It is objectively the best one.
It is such a good
Yeah.
course. That one is hard to beat. I do love that one. Gosh, is there another one that like hits the same as Mount Wario? I do like the. Yes.
Yes, go.
There's a was it Wario Stadium?
Okay.
That one's pretty fun too.
All right.
Yeah.
Another one that I would put just a step below Mount Wario is the Excite Bike one.
Oh, that one's really fun.
Which it's like it
I
just
like
plays
that
off
one.
of that kind of jump boosting
Right. It feels
mechanic,
good, doesn't it?
and just like you're just constantly going like super fast. It feels like it's for like pretty skilled play and just like
Right.
very chaotic. But yeah, the Mount Wario is just like has so many things of it being like this point to point. There's no laps.
Yep.
The downhill part of it.
The slalom.
Right.
I
the
love
slalom.
that.
Like I really like rally racing games,
Yeah.
and like the downhill like race is like
Felt
one
so
one of those things that they
You go
have.
through the woods and you have that like those
Right.
jumping over those trees, fallen
Right, you
trees.
start coming out of a helicopter.
It's cool.
Just incredible
It
from
is.
start
It
to
does
finish.
feel very like Olympic.
Right.
I will say that I do have a special relationship now with Coconut Mall because
Oh.
we have a famous video that we did,
Yeah.
I think last year when they finally released that course in a booster pack
Yeah.
where I had to get pied. The person that lost.
Well, you didn't have to. I mean,
I was gonna say the person that lost had to get pied in the
Gonna
face
say.
with a coconut cream pie, and
could have gone differently.
I was so close, but I definitely lost,
No,
and then
you
I
weren't.
got pied. But I actually was okay. Like that pie was pretty good.
You secretly liked it, okay.
And it was soft.
Weird,
it wasn't like,
weird fact about you.
It wasn't painful.
Loves getting slammed in the face with pies.
You were very gentle.
I felt that. So, like we said, this project, this game that's lasted, from announcement, we're past 10 years.
Yeah.
I have to ask the logical question to wrap up here is like, what happens next for Mario Kart?
I know.
We had such an interesting conversation on our last full podcast episode about what people say with Smash Brothers, like, oh, you can't possibly make a new Smash Brothers.
I know, because Ultimate is Ultimate.
Because there's so much in it. And yet, you could say the same thing about Mario Kart. You've crammed everything. You've added all these characters. You've got doubled the tracks. Right. And yet it still feels like there's a lot more possibility with Mario Kart.
It doesn't feel like the Ultimate yet, doesn't it?
Right.
It feels like there's a Mario Kart 9 in the horizon.
I think so.
And we've been banging this drum for like over a year now because we've been talking a lot about the next Switch 2, or whatever you want to call it. And like 100%, the Switch 2 has to launch. The launch title for Switch 2 has to be Mario Kart 9. They must know now that this is a cash cow. You want to make some money? Launch it with Mario Kart 9.
I think it's the ultimate launch game. It truly does reach everybody.
Right.
Obviously the teams had plenty of time to work on something new.
Mr. Yabuki's been pretty quiet.
Right. But I think also, this experience of now releasing this much post-release content over the years, I feel like Nintendo's been learning from that and thinking, I hope, about how to maybe have a more forward-looking plan for post-release content, where all of these things felt like a little reactive.
That's what I was thinking,
like, oh, this thing's popular, we better keep supporting it.
Doing something. Oh, we can use this thing to sell the NSO. Like, we better keep doing something.
It feels like now they can say, all right, people love Mario Kart.
Clearly works.
People are in on us releasing this stuff.
Yeah.
It feels like they can plan out, like, we're going to support from day one to the last day of this console's existence.
Could be 10 more years.
Post-release support. And I don't think they're looking at it as, like, the Fortnite live service model where it's like every month we're grinding out something new. Check the Travis Scott concert in Mario Kart.
Oh my God, no.
I don't think it's like that, but it's like every year to year and a half we will have a substantial new update.
Right.
And when you consider like, a 7-8 year life cycle like we got with the Switch, like that's a lot of content, that's a lot of reasons for people to come back. That's a lot of extra money you can get out of people.
It's cheaper than doing a brand new game every year.
Right.
And I think, no pun intended, but like they need to have a roadmap that goes from start to end for this new life cycle for Mario Kart 9 or whatever they want. Probably Mario Kart 9. They're probably just going to call it that. But yeah, instead of being like very reactive and sort of kind of cobbling this together as it goes, like I'm sure that they have this like master plan, ready to go, and maybe it hooks into other games that are coming out. Hey, maybe when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, we'll get Samus in Mario Kart with a cool like cart that that looks like something from that
looks
universe.
Like her ship.
That looks like her ship. Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's a way to use Mario Kart, because clearly this is like the best-selling game ever, right? Like, use this as like a central point for all these things to shoot off of. And that would be really cool for them to have this like central pillar for you to do that.
Yeah, to me that's very appealing. Like, I think that's a better approach than saying, well, we'll release Mario Kart 9 and then we'll release Mario Kart 10 in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Because you can just keep building on this base game, which is very good.
Yeah.
The potential downside to that is what we've seen, and I think they would be able to avoid this, what we've seen with some of the Mario sports games recently, where they feel very underbaked day one. And it's like, you took in totality what would have been a very full-featured game, and you plucked out 50% of it to kind of like fart it out months later for no real reason. Right. And I think they are smart enough and know that the scope of this game and the importance of this game to not do that.
Right.
But I think that isn't going to be in the back of the minds of some people if that's what they decide to do.
Right. You can't like artificially lengthen something by taking content out of like
Right.
the initial
People can tell.
launch. People are not that stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, they again, the road mapping or the planning of this needs to be like really solid, full-fledged launch game for Switch 2, and then like a really strong roadmap that is consistently timed, that's releasing stuff. Again, maybe it hooks into other things that are coming out to drive interest in those other things, boost interest in those other things. Like, that could be cool, you know? And you can see that Nintendo understands the power of this franchise. It even has transcended games. You know, it is the main ride at Universal. It was a huge plot point in the movie.
Good point.
So all of these things point to, like, we get it. This is big. Like, we're not going to mess it up, you know? So that gives me a lot of confidence. I'm really excited for Mario Kart 9. I think that the imagination for courses are endless. You know, very different than Smash, where it's very hinged on characters. Like, this is very much like, you can come up with courses forever. You know, you really have no limit to that. So I can't wait to see what they come up with.
How would you feel about a situation where they do start to go down the Smash Ultimate route and bring in, for the first time, third-party characters?
Oh.
In addition to the now very diversified Nintendo roster of Mario, Zelda, we got some F-Zero, we got a little bit of this and that.
I'm open to it.
I feel a little less open to it, actually.
Really?
I feel like I would prefer them to really maximize all of the Nintendo IP.
I mean, they certainly have plenty, yeah.
Before they even start to think about that. I feel like with Smash Ultimate, some of them felt like a bit of a reach to me.
Well, some of them were just like Mr. Sakurai likes this character, like Terry.
The 3 people who love Terry Bogard, no offense.
2 people, one of them is Mr. Sakurai, and then 2 others. It's Mr. Sakurai and 2 other people.
You know, he did envision that of a celebration of broadly all of gaming.
Yeah.
Whereas this is Mario Kart. I think hopefully, at least I say hopefully. People, some people feel otherwise, I'm sure. Like, I like keeping this in the Nintendo pool.
That's cool.
That feels more thematically
accurate,
in line,
authentic
with what we've got.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with this team's ability to just put so many little details and make these courses with other characters. These are Nintendo characters, obviously, but like the Zelda and the Zelda pack and the Animal Crossing pack, like they've done so much to make it feel very Mario Kart, but also pull in, what makes those games special. Like, I don't doubt that they can bridge that gap. But yes, hopefully it's not a situation where like one person is like, I really want this character to be in it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then no one cares.
Yeah.
Because that would be weird.
Yeah, it does just feel like, again, compared to Smash, like, that kind of core base fight mode is the only mode that can sustain.
Yeah.
Like with Mario Kart, like there is this legacy of the battle mode being an important thing. Imagine this.
Oh.
We've had F-Zero 99. Imagine if Mario Kart 99 was just built into Mario Kart 9. It's just a mode in.
That's so cool.
Mario Kart 9, Mario Kart 99. You just add another 9.
3 more 9s. 2 more 9s.
1 more 9.
1 more 9.
1 more 9. And, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not. But it does feel like this is just more... There's more openness to new kind of riffs on the base racing.
Yeah, the base racing is like the bread and butter, obviously. And again, you can endlessly make courses. And then you have all these other things that you could do. Like the battle mode is so good and so much fun. People love the battle mode. So it's not like people are like, don't focus on this at all. Like that's something that they want.
I think they could completely reinvent that too and make that even more of a, big equal part in addition to the racing. So who knows what they'll do next.
But it's going to be good.
Like you, I'm extremely excited for this. I still am in a bit of disbelief that this Mario Kart 8 is completely done. Like when you saw that new image at the end of the credits, that really drove that home. Thanks for playing. But yeah, we had to take a moment to just look back and really celebrate this amazing game.
Yeah, I can't believe that we were pretty much at Nintendo for almost the entire life of this game. Is sort of matched to our life at Nintendo, which is weird. We will start fresh, a new life.
Yeah,
will begin.
Born again.
Born again when Mario Kart 9 comes out. And we can look forward to that day together. Yes?
Yeah.
All right, well, let us know what your favorite Mario Kart 8 track is in the comments. If it's Mount Wario, then we are friends forever. All right, so we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Mario Kart!